Peace and Black Power, family. This is your brother Shakim Amenhotep Aket, right back at you once again. Right now I want to get into a demonstration that's dealing with paperwork versus bloodshed. Which is the true way to nationality or statehood? The reason why this issue is so complex is because we have individuals out here who are miseducating the people. And anytime you see a level of miseducation in the communities, it is imperative that brothers with knowledge of self and knowledge of God and knowledge of history, we need to be able to combat that foolishness. And so now we have a situation to where it's almost all-out warfare because there is a counterproductive force that is actually leading our people down the wrong path. So as brothers who are warriors and brothers who understand the truth and we understand history and we understand the philosophy of some of the great master teachers and revolutionaries in nations that have already conquered colonialism and they've established their own states, it's important that we take their information and use them to educate the people. Now, a lot of brothers are going to try to disagree with me. A lot of brothers are going to try to actually give some sort of retort. And they're going to say, Brother Shakim doesn't know what he's talking about. But I'm going to put that shit on the line today, family. Which is the best way for us to achieve liberation? Is it through paperwork or is it through bloodshed? And I'm going to break this down. Now, you see a lot of clowns running around with this stamp. Non-negotiable, accepted for value, approved for payment. Accepts value for this presentment and all related endorsements front and back in accordance with the Uniform Commercial Code 3-419 and House Joint Resolution. Please release all proceeds, products, accounts, and fixtures and the order of the court to me immediately. Now, brothers are going to have you so wrapped up in citing certain codes and citing certain statutes that you almost begin to forget common sense. Now, most of us who have a little bit of intelligence, we know and understand that this government has not been built on the backs of anything but terrorism. It hasn't been built on the backs of anything but bloodshed. It hasn't been built on the back of anything but lies and deceit. And do you really think someone who spent all their lives fighting and killing and murdering are somehow gonna let a motherfucker come in they established territory and let you file some paperwork saying that this is yours and let you go? See, even though the things that they are saying may be true and a lot of the information is accurate, but however, you forget that the implementation of these things that they're using, the European or the powers that be do not have to accept it because they are the ones that hold power and they have their resources that they can use. So anyone who feels that they can just start filing paperwork with the court system and get freedom is a jackass. Now, watch this. We're going to deal with revolution. You see these brothers right here? In my presentation of the argument, I'm saying that this is the only way that we are going to establish sovereignty, that we can establish statehood. If you want to talk about being here within the confines of this territory that is commonly referred to as the United States of America, the only way that we will logically be able to establish some sort of governance here is through actual bloodshed. Now, I'm going to go down to the history of African liberation, and I'm going to show you that none of these revolutionaries filed a goddamn piece of paper to the British courts, to the United Nations, or anywhere begging a motherfucker for sovereignty. What they did is they picked up arms, just like in this photo with the Mau Mau, and they picked up the arms and they started fighting and heading towards revolution. revolutionary, and they begin to adopt certain ideals, and they begin to adopt certain oaths, and they used it as something that they could put in their memory bank to let them know that the ultimate goal was freedom. They didn't go to the motherfucking European begging and pleading for them to have the British the colonial opposition leave. They didn't go to the Belgians and say, leave. No, they didn't go to the French and say, leave. They all picked up arms when they decided that enough was enough. And once they begin to decide that enough was enough, they band together and they came together in unity and fought like hell to get those oppressors out of their nations. And that is how they established their sovereignty and their statehood. Don't come to me with no bullshit about filing no goddamn UCC paperwork in the court system. Then you turn around after you file your paperwork, you telling me that we begging the European to do something for us, and you doing the same thing, going and filing paperwork to these motherfuckers. Man, let's get on here, man. Look at this. All throughout Africa, I got certain dates of nations when they won their independence. Now you can't show me nowhere on this damn map that I put up any location in Africa that won their independence, that did that shit, how these dudes around here trying to say that we could file paperwork and then all of a sudden we sovereign in a court. All you gotta do is proclaim your nationality and the motherfucking European is gonna take his foot off your neck. I'm about to stop all of that shit. And every time I hear someone who's using the utterance of those words or any similitude thereof, I'm gonna smash it. Because you have become, whether it's intentionally or not, you have become an enemy to our people by spewing that vile rhetoric out of your mouth, and it needs to get checked. So we're gonna jump into Kenya, Jomo Kenyatta. We're gonna jump into Ghana. You know, and I'm gonna jump around a little, and I'm gonna actually show how the Congo, I'm gonna show how these particular locations actually established sovereignty or nationhood. Now, let me beat something down real quick. See, niggas gonna mislead you to think that nationality automatically gets you statehood. But what they fail to tell you is that a nationality is only a group of people within a certain location or within a certain radius of each other that share the same culture, they share the same language, they share the same ethnicity. And the land that they're on doesn't necessarily have to be governed by them. And you can go and Google or look up what is a stateless nationality, because there are people who claim their nationality, but they don't have their own state. You go look at the Kurds, look at the Jews for a while. They didn't have their own state, but their nationality was made up, and it was so-called or so-termed Jewish. So you have examples in history and people right now who have a nationality, but they don't have a state. But when you have a statehood, that is when you are more acclimated towards being sovereign. That means you have your own territory that you call your own. You have your own governing body. You have your own economic system. You have your own political system. You own and operate your own hospitals. You have your own stores. And you are a functioning land with a people who are functioning together under a flag of unity. And you are operating in a manner that you are recognized not only by yourself, but you're recognized by other people as having your own territory. And those fictitious lines that have been drawn around that land have come to reality because the people who live there, they seek to protect their borders, so now they have a military. And that is what you really start talking about when you start delving into the definition of what is a state and what is a nation, what is a nation state and what is a nationality. Now, let's look at the Mau Mau. These examples that I'm going to show you are examples of how nationhood or how nationality really works when you want to start talking about how we can obtain that, not only here or anywhere else. Let's look at the Mau Mau. Well, the word Mau Mau, in all honesty, was a term that was given by the British to the people in Kenya. They never referred themselves to Mau Mau. Go do the history. But they called themselves the Kenya Land and Freedom Army. Now, when you start talking about freedom, these individuals are the Mau Mau, of the Kenya Land and Freedom Army. They were going through a situation that's totally synonymous or the same as what we're going through now. One, they had a dispute with the land with the British. The colonizers had them on small little packs of land. They were, I would say, bunched up and bunched in. They didn't have a means to feed themselves other than go and work for the colonizers, who were the British, and then the British would give them the crumbs and they would have to work in order to free themselves in a land that they were indigenous to. So the situation with us and them are damn near the same. Just like now we have the descendants of those same Britons here in the United States operating under the same guise of colonialism today here in the U.S. Now, that vow that the Mau Mau had to each other was a vow that they would not be separate from each other and they would unify in order to overthrow the oppressor. That's revolution. That's sovereignty. Sovereignty is not going down to the damn United States Post Office mailing off a motion. You can't get recognition like that. Now, the vow says, I speak the truth and I vow before God and before this movement, the movement of unity, the unity which is put to the test, the unity that is marked with the name of Mau Mau, that I shall go forward to fight for the land and the lands of Kenyatta that we cultivated, the lands which were taken by the Europeans. And if I fail to do this, may this oath kill me, and may this seven kill me, may this meat kill me. So now when we start looking and understanding how sovereignty goes, it's a declaration. Now, I agree with the brothers when they say the first step is proclaiming. That's wonderful. So the proclamation comes first. Even if you look at how the United States actually started breaking out from Britain, what did they first do? They declared their independence from Great Britain. And after the declaration came, then the war came. Because once a person declares something, that declaration in and of itself does not have any sort of tangible results. That declaration is only something that goes into the mental, I would say, recesses of your brain to make you understand that there's a goal, and it makes you understand that there's a vision that the people have inherited. And as they inherited that vision, then they have to move out and act on that declaration. So the Declaration of Independence was signed first, and then George Washington went out to start fighting against Great Britain. And this is the same thing that the Mau Mau adopted. They had a declaration or an oath. The declaration of an oath, and an oath was not necessarily in and of itself the end result, but it was only the beginning. But how can you walk around and say that you are declaring your nationality and your birthright, but you aren't preparing for a subsequent war? So you need to actually save your declaration for when you're ready to roll. You don't just go shooting paperwork to the motherfucking European talking about you declaring war. Are you declaring your nationality? That sounds all good. But keep in mind, the words are baseless and useless if it backs that bite and that bark of some sort of military aptitude that you can use in order to catapult you to the level to where you will be respected. It all becomes all symbol with no substance. Now, Jomo Kenyatta, quote. Now, I seen this quote also with Desmond Tutu. So I'm really trying to figure out who actually utilized it first, or both of them could have said it, because it's the God honest truth. So now it says, when the missionaries arrived, the Africans had the land and the missionaries had the Bible. They taught us how to pray with our eyes closed. When we opened them, they had the land and we had the Bible. Now that is the ultimate usage of trickery and deception and forgery by a people who come to conquer a land. And you know that they gave us that religious base, and they gave us that religious use of depending upon a system of Christianity that taught us to be subservient to European domination. We all know this so well, so it's not really important or imperative that I get into it. I just wanted you to see that the frustration that was built up within those people in Kenya are the same sentiments that we hold today here in North America, but yet and still we are being deceived by a group of people who are telling us that it's just enough to declare nationality in a courtroom in front of the same people who laughing at you. And then you think that that's the only step. They're forgetting that there's levels to this shit, man. You can't sit here and teach first grade and then fool the student into thinking that they graduated from college with a doctorate degree or a master's degree or MBA. But that's the type of deception and trickery that the brothers are using now. They're giving you first grade information, and then they make you think that, hey, now I'm free. I can go out and run traffic lights. I can go out and beat all these court cases because I'm sovereign and I declare my nationality. It don't work like that. And that's why you see these dumb niggas going to jail. Because they don't understand that hypocrisy is built all within the system. So therefore, it is really frivolous and moot to go in front of the oppressor when you lack power and then give some sort of declaration that's void of anything and think that the battle is won. You're deceiving the people, nigga. Now, this is some bullshit car, man, that RV Bay Productions is printing up and selling for $50. Now it's like a big con game going on, right? So now, man, I'm about to really like debunk this bullshit, because when you really start understanding the law, and you really start seeing the law, and you really start understanding what these statutes and codes and all that represent, then you begin to get into a heightened level of understanding when brothers come with the bullshit. But then not only that, you can go and start reading the opinions of these judges and the opinions of these lawyers and the opinions of certain districts and certain district judges and federal judges. And you can start looking at the opinions of the court and actually see where it's just fraught with hypocrisy. Now, a lot of the stuff that you read from a lot of these brothers, man, the shit gonna be old, right? The shit is gonna be old. And then the game that they playing with you is they telling you in one instance that we don't enter into contracts with the European. We don't enter into contracts with the European. And when you actually agree to operate under the confines of the statutes or the laws, you are inherently putting yourself in a contract with the United States. So now my question is this, and the rebuttal is this. If you are even agreeing by quoting their laws, trying to get up out of that shit, that means that you also understand that you are in this contract with the European. So if I'm not in a contract with you, there's no reason for me to have any sort of discussion about anything, because everything that you have is null and void, and I don't have a contract with you, therefore it doesn't even exist. But by the mere fact of me quoting some statute saying that this doesn't apply to me and this applies to me, and I can do this under your law, and your law says that no state shall convert a liberty into a privilege. When you start quoting their law, then that means subliminally that you've already subjected yourself to the same contract that you said didn't even apply to you. So now you double talking out of your mouth. Now let's check this shit out, right? Speeding. Let's look at this one first. That says speeding, driving without a license, wrong plates, no registration, no tags have been held to be non-arrestable offenses. Now he got this shit up here, right? Like, this is some shit that niggas need to know, and this is some real life shit that's going on. How the cracker comes and they deceive you into believing this foolishness, and then the hypocrisy that they institute, you still end up getting jammed up. Now, they say speeding is a non-arrestable offense. But if you go and you look up on the internet, you go to these different sites, you will see that if a person is speeding over a certain amount, then what happens is they will not just only charge you with speeding, but they will charge you with careless operation. Or they will charge you with the endangerment of another life. So yeah, they might not arrest you for speeding, but the officer can choose. He has it in his discretion to arrest you for, what did I just say? He has the right to arrest you for careless operation, which is an arrestable offense. So the hypocrisy is already built up within the system to where niggas point out shit like this, but then they turn around and jam you up. Now, it say wrong plates, no plates, registration, no tags have to be non-arrestable. Okay, so check this out. You don't have no plates. All right, they lock you up. Now, well, they stop you for having no plates. Guess what? When you go to court, they're gonna issue you a fine. Now, when you go to court, they issue you the fine, you go in front of the judge, he asks you to pay. Either one or two things. You can pay, boom, case dismissed. Or you can turn around and say you're not paying. Guess what? He gonna lock you up. Why? Not for not having plates. He gonna lock you up for contempt of court because you didn't have the funds that were needed to pay. See, there's always something, a loophole in the system for them to still jam you up. The right to travel. Oh, the United States Supreme Court says that we have the right to conveyance, the right to travel, right to locomotion. All are absolute rights, and the police cannot make void the exercise of rights. All right, they're not saying that you can't walk to goddamn Tennessee or you can't walk to North Carolina. They're not telling me, Shakim, I can't walk to the gas station. They're saying that no, you can't use the roads that are government property to operate a vehicle on. That is where that illegal activity comes in. Now they say, oh, you driving without a license. Now you getting jammed up. Or you driving under suspension. So the hypocrisy is, oh, we're not stopping your right to travel by what the Supreme Court says. We're saying that you just can't travel by a car. You can fly, you can get on a train, you can get on a bus, but you can't drive the vehicle. See, but the brothers who print this shit up, they're not gonna tell you that. They're just gonna throw this shit up and it sound good, and then they know a nigga ain't gonna do no research, and then they charge you $50, and then they sound real slick, and then they use all this jargon and these big words, and they use a lot of elocution that sounds so wonderful, and they have your mind all riled up, and you walk to all your friends and say, yo man, RV Bay Productions, man, it's some real shit, but then they don't go and they don't do their research. Now, back to real revolution, because this ain't no revolution. Real revolution. Patrice Lumumba. The day will come when history will speak. Africa will write its own history. It will be a history of glory and dignity. This is nationality and sovereignty. This is statehood, when you will write your own history. Not the history that somebody else has written for you and now you're trying to back up out of it. That's not power. Power is when you don't have to accept anybody's definition. And then whatever definition that you choose to adopt for you and your people, as far as your nation, guess what? It's going to stand and be respected because you have utilized all the resources in your territory. You've understood how to build the human potential that lies deep within all of your citizens. You've understood the process of educating your people. You've understood how to build an economy and use the latest technology, and you've learned how to get a stronghold on all the governmental systems that can be used, and you're operating in a manner to where the people's needs are being met who actually take a vow to live in this territory. That is what you call sovereignty. That is what is the ultimate goal of being a people who are separate from the colonial masters who have their foot on the threshold of all civilization. Patrice Lumumba, no one understood that. Guess what? Patrice Lumumba fought against the Belgian government. Now, when you start looking at Lumumba and you start understanding the situation in the Congo, you will have a better understanding of how nationalization and birthrights and all these things really work. Now, we know and understand that in late October 1959, Lumumba was the leader of the organization. He was arrested for inciting an anti-colonial riot in Stanleyville, where 30 people were killed. He was sentenced to 69 months in prison. All of these revolutions that you see in Africa involve bloodshed. It involved war. The Mau and Jomo Kenyatta, that took warfare. It took bloodshed. It took an oath to see the people free. It took that declaration of integrity and loyalty to their people, and then it was acted upon in opposition to what the slave master actually wanted to perpetuate in that land. Lumumba made that sacrifice, and his people in the Congo were actually fighting the Belgian forces. That's nationality. That's how you accomplish statehood. Lumumba wasn't begging the motherfucking Belgian to let him go. He wasn't pleading to them to let him go. Damn it, he was doing everything that he could within his power to see his people free. And the people were acting in accord with the vision of Lumumba. Of course, he had Negro opposition. We understand this. But yet, the Congo will not actually be a free nation that they are now, even though they still have the yokes of oppression and they're still feeling the effects of colonialism because they haven't really been out of it that long. So they're still a growing and budding sovereign nation, but yet they have established what they wanted to. So much to the point to the U.S. government tried to kill Lumumba. The report of 2001 by the Belgian Commission mentions that there had been previous U.S. and Belgian plots to kill Lumumba. Among them was a CIA-sponsored attempt to poison him, which may have come from the orders of the U.S. President Dwight Eisenhower. A CIA chemist was the key person in devising this plan, poisoning him to resemble toothpaste. September 1960, Galileo brought a vial of the poison to the Congo with plans to place it on Lumumba's toothbrush. See, now you see that when you start talking that talk and you start walking the walk the same way how they arrested Jomo Kenyatta and threw him in prison, the same way how they arrested Nelson Mandela and threw him into prison, the same way how they took Lumumba and sent him into prison, they are taking these men who are a threat to any sort of colonial regime and they're taking them and locking them up and putting them in prisons. However, if you notice that their movements and their vision were bigger than themselves, and they had and they were able to grab the attention of the hearts and the minds of the people, and the people all gathered around and they centered their minds on the vision that these brothers actually put out, which led them to be able to continue that same vision that they had once these brothers were incarcerated. And that ultimate vision was the liberation of the people, and they knew that the only way that they had to establish this was bloodshed. It wasn't no disagreement about if Lumumba should go to motherfucking the Belgians and beg them for freedom. At that point, the Africans knew that that was not an option. And that is why it is so imperative that we are able to look at these examples of the African liberation movement and then apply it to what we want to do. Because as long as we allow brothers to recklessly spew the rhetoric of filing paperwork in a court system that isn't ready to listen to a damn thing we have to say and hasn't listened to a damn thing that we had to say, then we will continue wandering around in that conundrum of that maze of thinking that we're getting somewhere, but we're only spinning our wheels. And that is why the people who are filing these paperwork, they're no threat. You see the niggas walking in the courtroom, what's happening? Niggas getting hit with the taser. Sir, Your Honor, going back and forth with the judge. You don't have jurisdiction over me, sir. Yes, I do. No, you don't have jurisdiction over me. Yes, sir. All right. Bailiff, lock his ass up. You don't got no jurisdiction? Okay. Well, you sleeping there tonight. Matter of fact, I'm going to give you 6 years, and then we'll see who got jurisdiction in this motherfucker. See, so when you start getting into a pissing contest with a war of words, man, you already gonna lose. That's why with the African liberation movement, you did not see the bullshit that's going on here in the US today. You saw motherfuckers taking it to the street with guns and amassing armies. But you got niggas like this, riding around with a motherfucking Morris license plate, talking about they in the Lakota Territory. You a Morris national. The rights of indigenous peoples. Got your flag of the enemy on that motherfucker. Both of the enemy. You got the Arab enemy flag right up here. So now niggas riding around, where's my pointer? Now you got niggas riding around with the goddamn Arab symbol on the motherfucker right here. Niggas got the Arab symbol right there. Then below it, you got the symbol of the United States of America. You got the enemy who stole our shit and put it up there. But instead of using your own concoction of what our ancestors taught us, you continue to use their own symbol, but then you want to call yourself an indigenous person, but then you using the enemy's concoction of our symbol instead of just going and using your own shit. So then you're riding around with that. Then here, you got the enemy again, you got the United States symbol down there, and then you got some made up shit that look like another goddamn Arab symbol on this motherfucker and talking about the rights of indigenous people. Now, all of that shouldn't be good, right? There's nothing wrong with this inherently. But what's actually wrong with this is the fact that there has not been that bloodshed. There hasn't been that vision, or there hasn't been that force behind that declaration that we will be free. There has not been any major economic blow to the foundation of a government that has built itself up on slave labor and free labor. There has not been any sort of bite or any sort of bark or any sort of shots fired around the world that actually let it be known that we are taking back or we are declaring our independence and we are willing to fight for it. And not only are we willing to fight for it, we are ready to die for it. And since there has not been that overt act of rebellion, then all of this is still bullshit. This would be all good right here if a motherfucker already done went to war and we free, and then we put this shit up and say, okay, now you got to respect it. But the motherfuckers who putting this shit up, they don't have no government. I ain't talking about no small government in the temple to where you kick a motherfucker out for damn saying that he's the national grand sheik and then he fucking punks and shit like that. That ain't what I'm talking about. That's not governance that I'm talking about. I mean, governance, when I speak of that, when I speak of a government body, I speak of a body of representatives who control an economy and have the ability to meet the needs of a people. Not only people who are depleted of resources and the government aids and assists them and helps them to bring up their human potential. I mean a government that is able to represent itself internationally so that people in other nations will begin to do trade with them and understand commerce, and they will begin to understand that these people have lines or territories territories that they are willing to protect the borders of. That's what I mean when I say that they lack a government. Now, off that coon shit, here we go. Nkrumah says the best way of learning to be an independent sovereign state is to be an independent sovereign state. Now, just in case you really didn't hear what I said, or there was some sort of lack of understanding in the words that I just spoke, I'll repeat that. Nkrumah said, the best way of learning to be an independent sovereign state is to actually be an independent sovereign state. So now, when you look at this, you have individuals who are surrounding us. They don't know anything about being an independent state because they've never saw or got into understanding the operation of being an independent and sovereign state. So that is why it is important that we meet with our brothers and sisters who have nationalized here in the last 60 or 70 years so that we can see maybe what is it that we will have to do or how we can come together with them to be able to say we want to hold on to the ideals and the values that you had during your freedom liberation movements so that we can establish something on our own. And if you know, Nkrumah sat here in the United States and he actually listened and he actually learned. And when he went back to his country, he began to take the same ideals that he learned and the same principles that he learned from over here. He went back to his country and then he started his own liberation movement. This is what you call black power. This is what you call opposition to the enemy, not that bullshit that they speaking in the rhetoric. These brothers running around with redemption manuals telling you to do. That's not the way how you achieve sovereignty and nationality. It ain't even that difficult. All we have to do is understand the art of war and how we can defeat an enemy that has his foot on the whole economic system of the globe. So when we look at Nkrumah, we see the liberation of Ghana. June 12, 1949. Nkrumah announced the formation of the Convention People's Party, with the word convention chosen, according to Nkrumah, to carry the masses with us. He understood that he had to garner the support of the people because you cannot have a movement without the masses of the people in support of your liberation. And if you don't have the masses of people supporting you and you have to utilize guerrilla warfare tactics, then it's another war that you have to fight. So Nkrumah understood that in order for him to successfully liberate Ghana, it was imperative that he had the masses on his side. What did he do? What did this consist of? Bloodshed. The liberation of Ghana, the basis and foundation of it, like Malcolm said, was land. Kenya, that revolution. The Mau Mau, the basis of that revolution was land. If you look at the Congo, the basis of that revolution, land. Zimbabwe, Zaire, the basis of that revolution was land. Just like Malcolm said, you can't have any revolution without bloodshed. And the basis of that revolution is land, because the people have been kicked off a territory that they've been calling their own for centuries by an occupying force who only seeks to continue or perpetuate their rule over the people in order to keep them at a level of poverty to where they can't educate themselves, to where they can't feed themselves, and where they cannot use that potential that they have in that ground to actually make a better day. So now what they do is they have us running around in circles now, thinking that a revolution that involves land doesn't involve bloodshed, but it involves paperwork being filed in the court system. And that's why I'm here to stomp on this shit, family. That's some bullshit. And Nkrumah called for positive action, with the unions beginning a strike on January 8th of 1950. Strikes. The strike quickly led to violence. And Nkrumah and other CPP leaders were arrested. January 22nd, Nkrumah was sentenced to a total of 3 years in prison. He was incarcerated with common criminals in Accra, Fort James. See, we have to stop misleading our people into thinking that revolution, our sovereignty, our nationhood, our nationality is only based upon filing paperwork. It's not a revolution. It's not a solution. So now I conclude with this, family. What side are you on? See, now it's important that we start the process of weeding and seeding. And until you actually state what side you are on, and as long as you remain in the middle, in the balance, then we have to consider you the enemy. But however, when we look at everything, we know that the time is up. The time is up for you to state what side you're on. Because albeit the fact that we all are of African descent, and we all are people who come from the same lineage and we have the same bloodline. However, the most important thing that separates us right now and keeps us from rising to the level to where we can become our own state is our ideals are different and they're separate. And we really don't want to seek unity with all the people, because if you seek unity with everyone, then that means somebody's message is going to get watered down. There is a moment to when we can put petty differences aside and come together on what we really want to do as a whole. But if we disagree on key things, or fundamental things, then we're going to have to separate. And we're going to have to now classify you as being the enemy. So now I have two competing factors on the board. You have the side of history, the side of what works. You have the side of definite action. You have the side of guerrilla warfare. You have that method that is proven to work. And as Minister Malcolm X says, nobody can give you freedom. Nobody can give you equality or justice or anything. If you're a man, you take it. And then we have the opposite end of the spectrum right here. The redemption manual. The Uniform Commercial Code. Knowing and understanding the Uniform Commercial Code. So anytime you get into a debt, you can wrangle on with these people about your names not being in all caps, and you discharging debt, and you doing all this shit. You're driving around with motherfucking a Photoshop driver's license that you done made up, which is all good. If you have already came to the conclusion that the only way for freedom is for you to fight with all your might and fight with all of your heart and pick up arms and go after a government that is built upon oppression, the only way that this can happen when you create your own is after this has happened. But the problem is we're trying to go to this step, and you're scared of this step first. And that is why you are deceiving the people. That is why it is important now that your system that is set up is going to be crushed by individuals like me who are ready to show that liberation only comes through the barrel of a gun. We can't no longer have niggas running around with this shit. Niggas is doing a disservice to the community. And as long as niggas keep doing a disservice to the community with bullshit like this, then the shit is gonna have to get stomped on. Niggas teaching classes about beating driving tickets. Niggas teaching classes about discharging student loans and shit. That shit don't work, bro. You talking it, but then as soon as you ask your brother, show me some paperwork, not some old, see nowadays you ask nigga to show you paperwork, you got dudes out there who good at Photoshop like me. I'm a beast at Photoshop. I can go create some fake shit right now and then you'll believe that shit is real. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people who've gone to school for graphic design like myself are masters. I can use CS6 like a champion. So I can go create some more bogus document and just show the average bro who don't do no research. I can do shit like that. I can print up some fake documents on some letterheads. I'm a beast. I can do that. But the thing is, You go and research all of the case law that a lot of the Moors have filed on sovereignty and trying to beat cases. Those motherfuckers lost. When they go in there saying that the United States doesn't have jurisdiction on them, they don't win. Show me a case from 2010 on up to where a Moor has walked in a courtroom and has won due to the lack of jurisdiction of the United States government. And don't bring me no fake, conjured up, concocted documents. Nigga, show me some real shit that came from the courthouse. I can go on LexisNexis, I can go on FindLaw.com and read that shit. What side are you on, family? You with the real, or you with the fake? You with history, you going with the myth? You going with the, you going the smart route, you going the stupid route? Are you real about this shit? Or you gonna be a bitch and hide? Peace and Black Power, family. Shakim Hotep Aket, South Carolina, RBG, I'm out. Peace and Black Power.